Greetings, truth seekers. Welcome to our space. This space that I call the ICU. Not the hospital kind, as I've mentioned to you before, though it's crystal clear we need intensive care. As you all must have heard, ICU here stands for intentionally competent you, because your inner consciousness has been unraveled. This is a mirror, your mirror, my mirror, a sanctuary, a signal. As we maintain inner authority and we leverage inner authority for our higher living, here in the ICU, we don't rant, we reframe. But hear me clearly. This is not armchair diagnosis. We don't provide armchair therapy here. This is not about naming syndromes or pathologizing our national history from afar. I'm not here to offer soundbite psychiatry. I'm here to offer structured soul work. Soul, that inner soul work that we all so direly deserve and need at this moment. I'm your host. Still reluctant, but radically hopeful disaster and crisis intervention therapist for the national and global psyche. I'm still here, seated across from Uncle Donald in this hypothetical couch. And now, across from the national amnesia that thinks, shouting from the mountaintops, that we are free, means that I'm also here, seated across from the souls lost, that none mourn. But some seek to render extinct by attempting to rewrite history and hide their stories. What we do here, this analysis, yes, it's not real in real-time psychiatry, but it's in real analysis. Today's episode, a special episode in the ICU within the Signal Campaign arch of a Episode universe. It's called Independence or Illusion. Reckoning with America's forgotten promises. And this is apropos as we sit, and in a couple of days, we'll have a 4th of July celebration in this country. We are not here to diagnose from a distance, as I mentioned before. We're here to deconstruct the emotional architecture and psychic wounds that have shaped and fractured American life. This is not just the 4th of July. This is not just about fireworks and flags. This is an ICU moment. An ICU moment that belongs within that whole arch, as I described to you earlier. A national pulse check. A spiritual x-ray of our country, still bleeding under its founding contradictions. Because while the U.S. declared independence from tyranny in 1776, it also built that independence on land it stole, on backs it broke, and on bodies it deemed less human. Just think about that for a second. Just lean back on the history of this great country. And now, in 2025, tyranny has taken on a new costume. Not a crown, as much as they would love that, but a slogan. Not red coats, but red hats. Not musket-bearing monarchists, but fragile egos with nuclear codes. This is Independence Day in the ICU. And I'll repeat this again. We leverage inner authority. So here in the ICU, as much as we would love to, given how frustrating things are, we don't rant. We reframe. Where we hold up a mirror, not to shame, but to sober. Let's begin with the awakening. Let's begin the reframing. And in doing so, my desire is to ignite transformation. So going back historically, so we'll start with the year 1776, a year in which liberty was declared, but simultaneously, humanity was denied. Let's tell the truth. Truth about liberty declared and humanity denied. In 1776, America fought a revolution, not for universal freedom, but for selective power. The Declaration of Independence cried for liberty, while slavery cried in chains. It praised life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Fantastic words. But denied all three to Native nations, to Africans, to women. It's amazing how easily we forget some of these things. And that's why things keep repeating themselves. This was not moral clarity. It was moral compartmentalization. Thomas Jefferson penned the words, "All men are created equal," while simultaneously enslaving over 600 people. The nation was born in brilliance, but also in betrayal. And that duality has and has continued to follow us ever since. We fought against tyranny. Yet in the 21st century, tyranny has revisited all of us. So let's take a step back and examine Trumpism and the reversal of conscience. So we started out with 1776, right? Fast forward to today. The man who once called himself a patriot now stands at the head of a movement that undermines the way freedom is supposed to be examined or experienced. Undermining that same freedom that July 4th claims to celebrate. Donald J. Trump, or as I characterized him, Uncle Donald, has taken the office twice. And it has never been to uphold liberty. The singular aim of him taking that oath of office, which, by the way, Americans allowed him the right to do so, was to glorify loyalty. And that is exemplified clearly in all the things he does. He punishes dissent. Everyone has to bow to the crown. He threatens journalists who pursue truth. Look at those who can attend White House briefings nowadays. He praises authoritarians and demonizes democracy. And you guys have heard him talk about the enemy from within. Is that projection? Because that's truly who he is. He is the enemy from within. This isn't conservatism. It's called behavior masquerading as governance. And we've heard some of the rhetoric he's used, and he continues to use till today. The man can't even complete a full sentence. He called African nations shithole countries. He mocked indigenous rituals. He shows constantly disdain for our war heroes, even mocking POWs. He has weakened voting rights, praised Confederate symbols, and pardoned war criminals. And look at the bills that he's pushing to destabilize that social backing that a lot of Americans rely on so desperately. This is not independence. This is that spiritual return of tyranny, and now with a better brand. And the irony in all of this, many who shout freedom the loudest are the ones fighting to silence others. It just blows the mind of any rational human being. And for us to better understand this, we must first examine America's original sins, the ones that still haunt us to date, the ones that still haunt this soil, and will continue to do so until we take deliberate actions to do something about them. So let's go a little deeper. It's difficult for me to comprehend how we can be celebrating liberty on stolen land, while at the same time ignoring the people from whom that land was taken. You cannot wave that flag of freedom and pretend slavery was just a footnote. Indigenous communities still face significant challenges. Some simple examples: contaminated water, underfunded schools, treaty violations, lost souls no one cares to account for. And this is just to name a few. And we see the assault on books that point to the truth, books that point to the violent history of our country. We have till date descendants of enslaved Africans still facing tremendous limitations, generational poverty, systemic bias, state violence, lost identity. I mean, the list goes on. Until we reconcile these realities, every 4th of July is a national gaslight. Fireworks can't cover up the silence of unmarked graves. Parades won't cleanse the sins of profit over people. Just let that sit on your nervous system for a second. While we ponder this, it leads me to our global responsibility. That fight for justice. That fight that doesn't stop at borders. And this isn't just an American issue. If America truly wants to lead, it must start with truth and reparation, not just at home, but globally. We can't condemn tyranny abroad while funding coups, extracting minerals, and exploiting debt in Africa. We can't promote democracy while selling weapons to autocrats. And we sure as hell can't celebrate independence while perpetuating dependence economies in the global south. True freedom doesn't require flags, doesn't require brashness, doesn't require the loudest voices. True freedom requires integrity. And that's something that's really hard to come by these days with the leaders in America and around the globe. So in keeping with our no rent posture in the ICU, here are some simple practices, because that power rests with you. If we want to claim independence, and independence for all on a global scale, and that freedom for all, it starts with you. It starts with me. It starts with us, the collective. Here are some simple practices that we engage in here in the ICU, some inner authority practices. And we start by rebuilding the meaning of independence. So for this week, here are some soul assignments for you. Draft your personal declaration of conscience. Not for a nation, for your soul. Because that's what this battle has always been and will always be. What do you stand for when no one is watching? Name the freedoms you have taken for granted. Speech, movement, voice. We sit here, we say we are free, while at the same time, we want to limit others from exercising their own rights to that freedom. And ask, have I defended these freedoms for others? Whatsoever you do to the list of my brothers, you do that unto me. We call ourselves a Christian nation. Yet we fight every single day to stand up and limit the freedoms for others. Make amends, personally and politically. In one of my prior episodes, or in one of my future episodes, you'll also hear me say it again. MAGA, yes, we understand. But we will never let you off the hook because of the dire consequences your actions have placed our nation and the world in. Make amends. Write, donate, advocate. Support Indigenous land protection rights. Fight for reparations. Use your privilege. Use your platform. Use your presence for someone else's liberation. Engage in global solidarity action. Support efforts in African nations resisting economic control. Because how can a country say they're free when they don't even control their own currency? Look at most of the countries in Africa colonized by France are still dependent on them for their currency manipulations and control. How can that country call themselves an independent nation? Follow Pan-African movements. Vote for policies that reject imperialism and promote equitable development. And when we talk about equitable development, look at Africa, the richest continent in terms of natural resources. It's the poorest in terms of development. And we have America, now China, Russia, Europe, France, all these other countries in Europe having a foothold in Africa to extract minerals. But the vast majority of people in these countries live in stark poverty. Why? We will tackle that furthermore in another episode that's coming up in the near future. But I want to say this clearly to you. Independence Day is not a parade. Independence Day will never be a parade. We have a lot of work to do. Independence Day is a promise. And a promise that we have broken again and again and again. we can still keep it. We can still rebuild a country that lives up to the poetry of its founding. And that poetry of its founding guides us in a certain direction. Well, now, if we stop worshiping the paper and start honoring the people, start living up to some of those words. America, the ICU is not your punishment. It's your pause. It's your breath. It's your second chance to get this right. With the dissemination of information now so easily, why can't we get this right? This is the reckoning. This is the moment. Not just for Americans, but for everyone across the globe who still believes that freedom must mean something. And that something goes far beyond just a flag, a lie, or a slogan. Thank you for joining me for this special episode in ICU, Independence or Illusion. Freedom is what we celebrate on Independence Day. So are we truly free, or is this just an illusion? So next up in the ICU, we'll tackle the big, beautiful bill, how Trump made intelligence a threat. Until then, carry what serves you, release what doesn't, but always keep walking with your ancestors at your back and your inner compass ahead of you as your guiding staff. And may you diagnose wisely, resist kindly, and reimagine boldly. Please subscribe, share, engage. Let's increase the awareness of this channel. Let's increase the awareness of our thought process. Let's increase the awareness for our inner authority. Please subscribe, share, engage. Always breathe. Breathe and send love to your nervous system. I see you.